as you can see by the title, it is another video in which we have to bring you quite sad news about cuts in WWE. Throughout the afternoon, we have seen numerous WWE talents either announcing that they have been released from WWE or reports from outlets saying that they have WWE has confirmed releases of WWE talents. We're going to go through the list just in a minute and break down who exactly is no longer with the company, who has left and departed WWE. Kicking things off about 3 o'clock UK time, a tweet from Mustafa Ali was posted on Twitter where he said, I'm no longer working with WWE. I look forward to the future. Thank you. Now, this caused a lot of speculation online. People expected at first, or were a little bit worried, maybe thinking it was maybe a work, maybe it was part of storyline, but it was confirmed that he has departed WWE.
Yeah, it's quite shocking, especially given that it felt like momentum was really starting to get back on his side, and the high profile match coming up at No Mercy, right?
Yeah,
for a talent who's kind of been pushed to the wayside repeatedly to then be sort of back on that track, it was very shocking to kind of see.
It is, as you mentioned, he's getting a wee bit of a resurgence, or had a bit of a resurgence in WWE. Next week at No Mercy was set to challenge Dominic Mysterio for the NXT North American Championship. He is a talent that hadn't been utilised in the main roster to his fullest and got a decent run in NXT.
It's something, strange. When you look back at his run, obviously starting in the Cruiserweight Classic and then progressing through 205 Live, which was a highly divisive show. You either kind of enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was great.
And he was able to reinvent himself there after coming in from the tournament. And then, graduating through to the main roster, it just felt like they never really knew what to do with him. But he is somebody who publicly asked for his release, or very publicly asked for his release on Twitter, not too long ago.
Yeah, back in January 2022, he publicly asked.
Just
publicly asked for his release back then. Obviously, he was not granted it. It was quite clear that he wasn't going to get his release and he would have to remain with the company until the expiration of his contract. He's been featured a bit more this year than he was last year. I think, though, for Mustafa Ali, you mentioned 205 Live, you mentioned the Cruiserweight Classic, and you've got to think about that run that unfortunately fell victim to injury, but in the lead up to Kofi Mania, we saw him getting a sort of a main event push with his matches against Daniel Bryan, now obviously Bryan Danielson. It sucks to see him go. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful since reported that this is part of wider talent cuts, and that would sort of lay the path for the rest of the afternoon.
Initially, it was speculated that it was just sort of a one-off sort of thing. Later, it became kind of clear that it was apparently they'd reached a bit of a mutual impasse, WWE and Ali. But initially it was like, no, there's not going to be any cuts, and then there's going to be cuts.
And then it seemed like the floodgates opened. Emma, who recently had come back to the company just last year, she posted this afternoon after the news of WWE announcing a show in Perth in Australia, her home country. She posted her excitement that she was going to get to wrestle in Australia, and posting that it was her dream. Then just mere 45 minutes later, retweeting that with, oops, never mind, I just got released. I am no longer with WWE. She's someone who just returned last October.
She was sort of brought back under the new Triple H regime. It was thought that there was, potentially going to be big plans in the works for Emma, but it didn't really seem to materialize, right? And it's kind of disappointing on that front. And it's got to sting, even more knowing that there's going to be a massive show in your home country that you're no longer going to be a part of. Exactly.
And it's not that far away. That show is coming up in February. We covered it earlier on in the news. Emma is someone who's this was her second run in WWE. She'd previously worked from the company between 2011 until 2017. She went off and did stuff such as Impact Wrestling, Ring of Honor. So the future is still bright for Emma in the sense of she managed to go out of WWE in her last run, reinvent herself under the Tennille Dashwood name, her real name, in Impact, in Ring of Honor, and made a name for herself that WWE went, we're going to bring you back. It really sucks that she was massively underutilized, but hopefully the future is still bright.
We'll see sort of that all pick back up, right?
Absolutely. Staying with more releases, Rick Boogs was another name that was released from the company. This was one of the names that Fightful Select had revealed as released. Boogs was let go this afternoon. He made his WWE debut back in 2017. We were discussing him earlier on in live when we went live to cover all these releases. what an exciting and unpredictable talent was Rick Boogs.
Yeah, he was sort of an all-rounder, right? He had the look and the kind of fun nature of a throwback 80s comic book style wrestler. He'd be shredding guitar and lifting weights constantly. They partnered him with Nakamura, which ultimately kind of led to injury and then never really coming back from that. But at the same time, you also had him being able to put on all the different hats, right? He was able to do the marketing side of things, the Old Spice advertisements. He was able to do so much. And it's stuff we're still seeing now with people like LA Knight, right? With the Slim Jim commercials. I figured that Boogs had a long, bright future ahead of him. And I think that he still does. It's just not going to be with WWE in the meantime.
Maybe not in WWE. He initially wrestled as Eric Bugenhagen, which I thought was an absolutely great name. He had a few name changes. Rick Boog, then it was Rick Booges, and there was a few little changes there. Obviously, his biggest moment sort of came at WrestleMania 38 when he teamed with Shinsuke Nakamura in the tag team title match. Obviously, unfortunately, suffering a quadricep injury during that match, but he came back from it and had a little bit of a run. Last appearing in SummerSlam in the Slim Jim Battle Royal.
Again, a name that they just haven't really utilized, in spite of the fact that a lot of people are behind Rick Boogs. A lot of people want to see more Rick Boogs, but they just could never find the space of the time, it feels.
And what a talent on air guitar is Rick Boogs. Yeah. So
I the real guitar, man.
I can't wait to see him on an independent show or other companies at some point playing some air guitar or real guitar. Another name that was released today, revealing on Twitter herself, Aaliyah, saying, as of today, I am no longer a part of WWE. Just 28 years old. She signed with WWE back in 2015. Made her way to the main roster in 2021. She's actually a former WWE Women's Tag Team Champion. She also, as we mentioned on the live earlier on, she holds the record for the fastest win in WWE history.
Yeah, 3 seconds over Natty. 3 seconds.
3 seconds. That's how long it takes to count a pinfall. It's
literally.
Actually insane. Obviously, she's been with WWE a wee while. Well, she's not really used at all.
She was a talent who was, very prominent in NXT for a very long time. And it felt like it was one of those situations where it was going to be, it felt like, when somebody's ready, but you're just waiting. They're waiting for that kind of train to come along to pick them up and take them to the main roster. Eventually that happened. And then it felt like it was misfire after misfire. And it wasn't really her so much. It was the company didn't really have anything for her, situation to put her in to let her just run and hit the ground running. Coming from NXT where you were prominent to then just sort of being put into various different things to see what works on the main roster must have been none of them
really fit, which was a real shame. But that was Aaliyah just announcing that she has left WWE. You mentioned someone going from NXT to the main roster and hitting the ground running. I think no one really encapsulates that more than really Elias. Elias was someone who didn't really fit in with NXT.
From somebody who would just walk around on the back of hard cam with a guitar slung over his shoulder to just on TV every week with a standout segment nearly every single week.
And loud responses from the crowd. But Fightful Select confirming that Elias has been released from the company. He's been a part of WWE since 2014, originally debuting as Elias Samson in NXT. He was then moved to the main roster, had his name shortened to Elias, and that's really where he sort of became popular with the Walk with Elias and having whole arenas. Just instead of watching him wrestle, just do a concert.
It was organic, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like, we talked about this on the stream as well, but around WrestleMania 34 when it was New Orleans, Elias went to like a bar and he did an open mic. He did a little concert. He had a #1 iTunes album. He had a signature Fender guitar, I think. Like the guy's achieved so much.
He has,
and it's the Ezekiel stuff was fun. I feel like it could have gone into a much more interesting place than it ultimately did.
Yeah.
And I feel there was so much more there, or so much more with the classic Elias character we could still be exploring. So I think that, again, another talent that we 100%, I don't think we've seen the last of Elias in any form in the wrestling world.
I think that's the case definitely with Elias. He's someone who's a lot of potential, even both in wrestling and out of. His music was actually quite good. His music was great.
His most recent performance was in a battle royal on May 15th.
It's been a while since we've
from
seen
somebody
him.
who was utilized surprised on the weekly on SmackDown when I was doing SmackDown Graded. You know, there'd always been Elias segment. You had him when he was going up against Braun, and they had a lot of fun back and forth. And he was part of humanizing Braun in that kind of way when we were getting the bigger and more ridiculous things going on, the huge double bass. And for me, it's a very odd one to see Elias's name on any list of this nature.
It is absolutely to see him depart the company, and hopefully, you know, he can land on his feet and hit the ground running. Another name Fightful confirmed was Riddick Moss, who has been with WWE since 2014. He really only got that main roster push back in 2021. Madcap Moss teaming with Happy Corbin. What a little pairing that was. A lot of fun. Unfortunately, Moss has sort of taken a backseat in the past few months. He didn't quite get utilized as well as he should, and the potential that he showed alongside Corbin.
That was it. I think that once Corbin and him sort of went separate ways, it was like the support just wasn't quite there for it. And I don't know what more could have been done, but it's one of the situations where, again, you know, Riddick Moss is somebody who I feel, especially in the nature that he responded to this and he kind of publicly addressed it. He said that he saw this as his graduation from WWE. So it very much feels like he's trying to see as much positive in this as possible, and we will see him again.
It's a great way to view it. Of course, his fiancée Emma was also part of the cuts, who we discussed just earlier on. So it really sucks to see both of them released today. Another name released, Top Dollar. This was confirmed by Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful again, saying that, you know, he's departed the company only just a month after returning. He returned last October. As of right now, his Hit Row stablemates Ashanti, the Adonis, and B-Fab are still under contract with WWE. They came back just last year. They were part of Triple H's sort of first talents to bring back once he took over the books. It's a real shame to see Top Dollar go out. I feel like he has massively improved in the past few months.
And the thing is as well, he was somebody, after the initial release, he was able to really maintain relevancy, stay active within the sphere. People were kind of, you know, on top and wondering what was going to be next. It's just a shame that when it all kind of came back to WWE, Swerve was no longer part of it. But at the same time, I think they've done quite a lot in getting Top Dollar to be the core of that group in a way, going from being that kind of enforcer type to being the center of it.
So we'll keep an eye on Top Dollar going forward. Then we're going to round things off here. We've got two releases, and I think it's the names that we shocked the most. Yeah, it shocked most people online. Firstly, Shelton Benjamin has been released by WWE. He tweeted out himself saying, "I have been released from my WWE contract. I thank the WWE staff, talent, and of course the fans for everything. Something ends, something new begins. Looking forward to my next chapter." And I think that's what we were highlighting on the stream. Shelton Benjamin is someone who is a veteran of the industry. Yeah. He has been a staple of WWE, despite being out of WWE between 2010 and 2017. Yeah. It feels like he's always been there.
Yeah, you know, in some way, shape or form, it feels like there's been an element of Shelton for the last 21 years. Yeah. So it's kind of... It's not entirely unexpected given his tenure with the company, given how long he's been with the company overall, you know, not counting the large gap in time he wasn't there. We saw some great stuff with the Hurt Business, but it feels like they've not really done anything to capitalize on Shelton in the time since. And as someone who can still go, and as somebody with the mindset he has, I think that, you know, there are many, many hats that Shelton could be putting on within the wrestling sphere, whether that's in ring, whether that's training, whether that's behind the scenes producing. I think that he's somebody who is going to be able to give a lot back to the industry in some way one day, but this might not be that day. We might see more in ring.
We might see more in ring. He truly is the gold standard of some of those WWE talents, just to borrow his own catchphrase of that. But you mentioned tenure, you mentioned WWE and having folk around there for a long time. The most shocking name to come out of today's releases. Of course, all of them were shocked to see release, but of course, Dolph Ziggler was the most recent. His Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful tweeting out, Fightful has learned that former World Heavyweight Champion Dolph Ziggler has been released by WWE. Dolph has been with the company since 2004.
19 years.
19 years. Yeah. He has been in WWE for pretty much as long as I remember, as you were saying on the stream, as long as you remember.
Yeah, kind of. He's sort of since I was like 11 or something.
Right? Like he's Even if he wasn't there, like on a presence, he's always, it just feels like he's always been there. He is a WWE guy. Of course, he would start his run on WWE. You had Kerwin White, you had the Spirit Squad. You then had him repackaged as Dolph Ziggler in 2008, and
what a run he's been on in the years since, and what he's been able to do with even the situations where it's just we don't really know what to do, just throw him in a tag team,
right?
And to be able to keep something like that relevant, to make it interesting, to keep it fresh in spite of just repetitive booking through some of those really dark periods of time where it was just very repetitive. Same matches week in, week out. They were always able to bring, like a unique flavor to it. And I think Dolph is, again, he's
an absolute worker, and you can put him in the ring with anyone, and you're going to get a good match. You know that he's going to bump all over the building. Yep. He's going to make everyone else look good. You mentioned it on the stream, but he is an absolutely selfless worker, and that he makes everyone look good.
He's also got a lot going on outside the wrestling sphere as well. So it may be that we see Dolph popping up. He does a lot of stand-up comedy. He acts. He does a lot of different things. So we might see more of him in different spheres. We may see more of him yet in the world of wrestling. I'm sure a lot of people would love to see him work with his brother at some point. That was a pretty prevalent theme in the live chat.
Yeah, Ryan Nemeth, his brother, of course, working for AEW. So it will be a name that I think everyone will be keeping an eye on. Dolph Ziggler, Nick Nemeth, of course. Just to run down the list of names before we round things off: Mustafa Ali, Emma, Rick Boogs, Aaliyah, Elias, Riddick Moss, Top Dollar, Shelton Benjamin, and Dolph Ziggler. Those are the latest we have on all the talent cuts. Brian Alvarez off the Wrestling Observer tweeting that WWE will be cutting NXT and Performance Center talent later on today as of the time of recording, and we will have more information when that comes out. Stay tuned to Cultaholic.com for all the latest. Aidan Gibbons, our editor-in-chief, has been working hard to make sure that all the latest news is there for you. It's a moving story. It's a real unfortunate piece of news today, especially after seeing the staff cuts last week, after the big merger between them and UFC, TKO, record profits for the company. Seeing talents cut, it's never a good thing, but we will stay tuned with all the news. Stay tuned to Cultaholic and cultaholic.com. We will be back later on, so thank you for watching.